Welcome to the Daily Bitcoin Podcast, where knowledge meets financial freedom. We're here to break down the world of Bitcoin. No fluff, no hype, just real talk about how this digital asset is reshaping the future of money.
All right. We are now live with Scott with BitaXe. I'm Craig LeBlanc, your host, the doorman, bringing you people that are working in the Bitcoin space, doing a lot of cool stuff, whether it's hardware, software, or just building community. And I think Scott's probably doing all three, now that I think about it.
So, yeah, I think that's about right.
Yeah. Tell us about this new block, or I know that's big news for y'all. How does that go? When did that happen?
Yeah. A BitaXe solved a block. BitaXe is a small home miner, and sort of against all odds, someone, we don't know who, solved a block with what appears to be a BitaXe. And this was, oh man, was this last week? Time has been a blur, but very recently. In fact, on the first day of the conference, I was sitting at Bitcoin Park watching a presentation with Matt Odell and Jack Mallers, which was very engaging. And someone taps me on the shoulder. My friend Wayne taps me on the shoulder. He was sitting behind me, and he like reaches his arm forward, and he has his watch, and it's showing me a post or a tweet from WantClue, one of our forum members, that just says BitaXe solved a block. And I'm like, no way. And so I'm like getting on my phone, like trying to verify if this is true. And yeah, it looks like it happened. So that's, BitaXe was solo mining on CK Pool, which is a solo mining pool, and solved a block. And that means the person got, minus CK's 2% fee. They got the full block reward. So that's like 3.125 Bitcoin. And
wow.
Yeah. They got it all.
This could be this. I'm sure y'all thought of this. There's no way I'm the first to think of this, but this could be like buying a perpetual lottery ticket that you just get to dream about. What if I win? Which is half the fun of buying a lottery ticket, which is just, but it just goes on forever.
Exactly. Yeah. People call it lottery mining for that reason. I actually looked, and the odds of solving a block with a single BitaXe per day, meaning if you run it all day, your chances of solving a block in one day is very similar to the odds of winning like the first sub prize on the California state lottery. It's like 1 in like 9 million, something like that. Mm-hmm. And the prize, which, obviously changes for the state lottery depending on the jackpot, but it also changes depending on the Bitcoin price. But anyways, the winnings are similar, right? It's in the, $200,000 range. So it is a lottery ticket, right? It costs a BitaXe will cost you like nearly $200, whereas a lottery ticket costs you like, I think like $2 or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different, but the cool thing is, you just leave it plugged in, and it's like entering every day automatically. And, it'll cost you a little bit in electricity, but a BitaXe is like 15 watts, which is like a cell phone charger. So,
oh yeah,
depending on your electricity price, you're looking at like $1 a month kind of thing to keep it plugged in.
Plus, if you're like me that live in coffee houses, you can just plug it in at the coffee house.
Totally. Yeah. Then you're not even paying for electricity.
Right. There's so many free places to get electricity, whether you're at a library, you're working out, you're, just in an apartment, or you're at, traveling, where electricity is included in the bills. So you're not going to pretty much free electricity.
Yeah. I was thinking about making a version of the BitaXe that's like, it's all attached to like a plug, like kind of an all-in-one plug. You could just plug it in, get it on the Wi-Fi, and then forget about it. Maybe it just looks like a small little inconspicuous beige box or something.
Yeah. And something that maybe even has a little higher hash rate, because, this would be for the free electricity people that can maybe draw like 7 to 8 amps of electricity, which is however many watts that is times 120. Let's see. So that would be, let's say we went 10 amps, it would be a 1200 watt. So maybe half that, a 6,000 watt.
Yeah, that's that's starting to be a space heater, which I think people might notice. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're at a coffee house or you're in an apartment, or I'm just thinking for those traveling people that could literally just have free electricity all around them, but not more than just a regular receptacle. So it can't be much. But
yeah,
I was in that crowd for 20 years, and I was like, man, I could have been mining every time I checked into a hotel with zero
yeah,
cost.
yeah. I had an office a while ago, and electricity was included in the price, and so I was like, dude, I got to start mining. So I got myself an S9, plugged it in, and I'm like, dude, I'm a genius. I'm gonna be rich here. Then I quickly realized that this thing is really hot and really loud. And it's like, I can't just run this in my office. I'm going to go insane. So, I had to write a script to run it at night when no one was there. And then, I'd forget to turn it on. And it just wasn't quite, it didn't match up my dreams of glory perfectly.
Right. Yeah, we've got to find that happy balance. So then maybe take us back. Well, actually, I'd like to go back to even, where you came from, your childhood, your upbringing, just because, I like to highlight the makeup of the Bitcoiners, like their what their life was like growing up. And that kind of helps us understand, where they're coming from and who they are. So where are you from? Family?
Well, I grew up in Northern California, like just north of the San Francisco Bay Area. And, I guess, I don't know. It's just like a boy. I love taking apart stuff. My parents would give me like the old VCRs and stereos and stuff like that to just take apart. And it was kind of cool. Like I really liked just taking it apart, and I would look at the circuit boards and have no idea what this thing does, but be very interested in what's the lowest level I can take it apart to. And, there's no expectation that I would ever put it back together. So that was cool. Really enjoyed doing that. I guess I was always like very mystified. Like, how does this thing work? Like, how could someone possibly design this? There's so many pieces and so many little things going on, and just very curious about that. This is kind of dating me, but VCRs are like electromechanical devices. There's a million pieces. I don't even know how they work these days, but I think maybe that sparked my curiosity. But in school, I was like just not digging on math, science, and stuff. I don't know. It was like, I feel like in school my trajectory was not towards being an engineer, and it was because just math was very hard. So sorry, adjusting my light there. I just was very interested in it, but in school, they're always like, well, if you want to be an engineer, if you want to design this stuff, you want to know how it works, you're going to do a lot of math, like a lot of math. And I'm like, well, this is too bad, because I'm not really liking math, but I certainly am liking this, technology, sciencey kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
did you go to school for engineering by any chance, or did you just skip out on school and decided to go straight into business?
I went to engineering. Yes, I am a classically trained engineer now. I went to school for a long time, studied electrical engineering and computer science.
Oh yeah, I was in electrical engineering. I switched to civil.
Oh, nice.
So you went through all the calculuses that we never use.
Yes. I've forgotten it all because I never use it. But
never used it. Right.
I did. In school, it was just so, weird, because everyone's saying if you're not doing the math classes, you're not going to be able to do engineering. But this was what I liked doing. And so I was, this was like the beginning of the internet, and was fascinated with, BBSs and calling into computer systems and stuff before the internet, really. And then once the internet was coming up, it was just all about it. It was totally my jam.
Yeah.
And so I did not go to college right after high school. I took a bunch of time off, and worked a couple different places, in technology stuff. But then I ended up going to community college, and then transferring to to a nice university. It was funny, like when I started back at community college, they're like, so you want to do engineering, huh? Like, what math level you're at? And I told them, I was at like algebra, basically. And they're like, oh, you got a lot of math to do. And I was like, I don't know, let's just do this. And so I took an absurd number of math classes. Like I had to start back at like classes I had taken and failed in high school.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was pretty rough, but I don't know. It was to the point where it's like, let's just do this. And,
All right. So
algebra, trig. Sorry, what's that?
If you're finally done with your education, what's your first move after you saying, all right, I've got enough papers?
I went snowboarding. I was like, having gone to school for like 6 years and doing like absolutely nothing but studying. I was like, well, I'm going to take a little bit of time off. I went snowboarding a bunch, did a lot of sailing. But then a buddy called me and he was like, you need to come work for me at in the electrical engineering and computer science department at where I went to school. And so I worked there at UC Berkeley, where I went to school for a number of years in what they call it EECS, Electrical Engineering Computer Science Department, supporting labs and like supporting research and development projects that were going on there. That was awesome. That was like being at school, but not having to do like any studying or tests or anything, but like, surrounded by that academic environment, which was really cool. A lot of graduate students and stuff doing neat stuff, but I was like getting paid to be there.
Yeah.
That was a fantastic gig. Met a lot of interesting people doing cool, interesting things. And eventually got sort of poached from there to work at a startup doing electrical submetering. So like, we were monitoring the magnetic field coming off of circuit breakers in an attempt to wirelessly meter the current coming off of an individual circuit breaker.
For what purpose? Just for billing purposes? Just to see what the amp loads were?
Yeah, exactly. It was, the idea was that this was an easy way to retrofit any sub panel with metering capabilities, right? You don't even have to turn off the power. You can just stick this, actually like a sticker that would stick on the front of the circuit breaker and would give you an idea of the current going through that breaker. And
so each down to the individual breaker inside of a panel?
Yeah.
No way. So how did it work?
Sort of. It's a really hard problem.
Very cool. I ran an electrical service company with 60 electricians. That was my first business let me know if y'all ever figure that out.
I mean, the startup went the way that most startups do, which is just towards total failure. But the idea is pretty sound, right? I think it's called the Biot-Savart law that says that the magnetic field is proportional to the current through a wire. And that's just, we had some magnetometers on there and it was measuring the magnetic field in 3 axes and attempting to back out the current that was directly below in the current carrying wire directly below. We call it a patch.
Did the neighboring breakers interfere with your measurements? That's kind of what threw it off.
Yep. You guessed it. It's like really solid in concept until you start realizing that there's all this metal everywhere and the electrical permittivity of steel changes the magnetic field in ridiculous ways. That's way too hard to take into account, especially with, there's a bunch of different vendors of breakers and breaker panels, and they're all different.
And they're all installed 1,000 different ways.
Yep.
It's not a lab experiment.
Yeah. But we did a lot of installing CTs on the wires behind it to try and verify how it was working. So I spent a lot of time screwing around with that stuff.
Yeah. Well, that still works pretty good. I mean,
yeah. I mean, that's the classic way to do it, but you got to open up this panel, and these are in places where they don't necessarily want to like turn off the power to the whole facility to add this.
Yeah. That was a luxury we didn't get in service work. A lot of our work was done hot because we couldn't turn off hospitals, and we were like the emergency crew as electricians. So we had to work in hot panels. So that's why when you were saying that, I was like, wow, that would have been so much easier on the stuff we were troubleshooting.
And it was an Internet of Things project. So it was kind of a lot of the benefit that it could provide is like instantaneous notification if power went off, right? If the circuit tripped or, the power went off upstream of there, we could provide instant notification. And I don't know, these are all the pitches to building facilities managers.
Right. And investors.
Yes. And investors.
And investors.
I hate that side of things, man. That is investors.
You can already see the pitch deck.
What a pain in the ass.
Internet of Things, intersects, metering per breaker, something like that.
Yep. You got it, man. We should have hired you to.
I did fundraising for a VC firm, and they tinkered with Internet of Things, but it never landed on our thesis. We just had some good opportunities. But I was familiar enough with it to say we don't do that, but let me get you in touch with someone that does.
Yeah. I mean, when I was working at the university in the EECS department, there was a lot of these types of projects. Like, this just sounds so genius, like, holy cow, like you're going to get this, random thing, usually in sort of the industrial space, like on the internet, that's going to like change everything. And it's very attractive to investors initially, but then you realize that this is a really hard engineering problem, like a really, really hard engineering problem.
Yes. So, okay. So how long did you torture yourself at that place before you moved on?
Well, I was working at the university for like 3 years, and then this startup for just over a year. And then we just like ran out of money, didn't get the investment that we needed to sustain. And so we just, I wasn't a founder or anything, but the company just shut down. And so I found myself on my own, but with one of the founders of that company, we were still getting a lot of inquiries for various engineering work. And so we started a engineering consultancy, just contracting out to do whatever design work people wanted. And we did a lot of like remote sensor, like data acquisition and measurement stuff for verification. And I made a lot of like low power, battery powered Bluetooth sensors, did a lot of like satellite internet work, all kinds of cool things. It was pretty exciting, just like working on whatever random project came up. It was always someone else's idea, but it was fun to dig in on some crazy new project idea someone had.
Yeah.
Now,
did it so that was your own little engineering firm with one of your other partners?
Yeah.
All still in California?
Yep, all still in California, in the Bay Area. Of course, our clients were all around the world, but I was still living in the Bay Area and working there. And we built that firm up pretty big. We started, getting some really big jobs, being very successful, had a number of employees, big engineering staff. It was cool. It was really, really cool. And, that was kind of like that whole economy build up into the pandemic, and right around the start of the pandemic was just people. There's a lot of VC money, a lot of startups, a lot of people, a lot of ideas would come to us, and you're just like, this is a terrible idea, but you have a lot of money raised, so we'll build your thing. Like, okay.
You see both of those problems. You see great ideas underfunded and terrible ideas overfunded.
Yeah, I've come to realize that there's not really much correlation there between like how quality your idea is and how much money you can raise. There's just these people that are really good at raising money, and they can do it for whatever, and they'll just sort of go work for the highest bidder to raise money for them.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Are you still in that world, or have you moved?
No. I at the beginning of this year, we were kind of winding down the consulting business. Some of our bigger contracts had, finished, or their funding had evaporated, and so we were kind of winding things down. And I had been working on the BitaXe as a passion project, just nights and weekends, for maybe the last year and a half or so. BitaXe was just starting to work and gaining in popularity, and beginning of this year, I applied for and got an OpenSats grant to work on BitaXe. And so I just stopped working on Geoscene is the name of the company, the consulting company. I stopped working on Geoscene and started working on BitaXe full time, thanks to this grant. So that's what I've been doing.
I missed the date. What was it? When was this again?
It was the beginning of this year. It was just about January.
Oh yeah. Oh wow. So that's very recent then.
Yes, it's very recent, but it's so exciting, and it like time has been a blur ever since. Like I'm working on this thing that I absolutely love, and I get to do it every day, and meeting all kinds of cool people, and the project's really taken off. It's
oh my gosh! All
just
right,
fantastic.
Rundown. So you applied for a SAT grant. Now, what is that? I've heard of those. So
yeah, it's called OpenSats, and it's a 501c3 nonprofit organization that basically they take donations from big donors, or any donors really, but they have some big donors, and they take that money and they are tasked with providing grants to open source Bitcoin developers. And I went to a technical Bitcoin conference in Atlanta like last November.
Yeah, I'm signed up for that one. I just heard about it on the show.
TabConf?
Yes.
Yeah.
I bought my ticket.
Oh, right on. Okay. Well, I'll see you there. That's a cool conference. It's so much different than, like the one we just went to in Nashville. It's like,
never been to one, so I have no idea what to expect.
Like much smaller, much smaller. And
that's what I wanted.
Everyone is obviously very stoked about Bitcoin, but a lot of developers, a lot of like heated conversations about super obscure technical topics that I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, but this is cool.
Yeah.
But anyways, OpenSats, one of the board members of OpenSats, his name's Dredd. He was giving a presentation at TabConf and was like talking about OpenSats and sort of their charter to fund open source Bitcoin development. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I should apply. And afterwards I walked up and I asked them, and because, they were talking about a lot of software projects that they had funded. Afterwards I asked them, I'm like, I'm working on this, I'm working on a hardware project. It's a Bitcoin miner. Like, is that something you guys would be interested in? And he was like, yes, like you should apply. And so I applied, I filled out the form, a collaborator of mine, Johnny, and I filled out the form and applied like that day. And I didn't hear back from them for a while. And I was trying to seek out the other board members and lobby for my project to try and give myself the best shot, because I was getting, more and more excited about the possibility of doing this. And then I think December, they were like, all right, you have a good shot. We're going to let you know soon. And then officially it got announced in January, and they told me that it's a year-long grant paid in Bitcoin. And it's fairly open-ended. Like if they have a 9-person board or 12-person board. There's like a number of people from the industry on their board, and they kind of go through and vet all the applicants. And once you've sort of passed that they want to stay abreast of what you're working on, but it's fairly non-prescriptive. You can, as long as you're working on open source Bitcoin work, you're funded.
So how do you open source the hardware? Basically just the drawings, the designs, so that anyone could basically take your work and try to replicate it somehow.
Yeah, it's really commonly done in software, but like you said, it's a little bit more unique in hardware. But yeah, all my design files are on GitHub. I use an open source PCB design or schematic tool, a CAD tool called KiCad. And all the files for that are online. Everything you need to grab it and modify it and make your own version, or if you want to just start manufacturing or building the BitaXe directly, you can do that. It has a GPL license, which is it's really common in software, but it works on hardware too. Basically, the license says you can do whatever you want with this. You could sell it, you can profit off it, you can change it and modify it. You could call it the Craig miner if you want. The only thing you have to do is release your changes under the same license, meaning you can't start selling it and have it be closed source. It needs to be open source.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. So basically, you're basically contributing to the brain trust. And then, of course, if you're like most people, they don't want to build something from scratch. They just want to pay for what you've built and then start using it. So,
yeah, that was something I realized pretty quickly. Is I had built the BitaXe and I had put all the design files out there, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, let's start this revolution, you know. And people would be like, well, where can I buy it? And I'm like, nowhere. You have to just build it.
just
And a couple people did. Like a couple people built it, but it's hard. It's hard to build. It's a lot of components. It's a complicated build, and so most people were like, no.
That's why Apple has a company, because people don't want to build their own computers.
Yeah. Right. Apple started, it was a hobby project, right? You've seen those Apple ones. They're just like breadboardy kind of things. And
yeah.
It's hard to do, but people showed up, and some really talented folks showed up who were all in on the project, very committed. And I mean, I couldn't have done it without them, but a number of folks showed up and they're like, we're going to start manufacturing this. We're going to start selling this. Like, you know, and hardware is real things. You have to buy them. It's not like software where you can just copy paste and sell some software on your website. Like, to do hardware, you have to buy things. You have to buy the components. You have to buy circuit boards that will always cost money. And so people came, showed up, were committed to the project, put their money on the line to get BitaXes manufactured and start selling them. And they showed up well in advance of BitaXe really working really well. And so that was a big leap of faith on their part. I'm eternally grateful. And through their help, we got it working. And now, especially that BitaXe has solved a block, we know that it works.
Right. So when you say start manufacturing, are you manufacturing all this here, just in your garage, or did you outsource to China some stuff or components, or, you know, walk me through that?
Well, this is the cool part, and this is kind of different for a hardware company. Is I don't manufacture any of them. I don't build any BitaXes. I only design them and publish the design files. All the BitaXes that you see out there have been made by someone else.
Wow.
And I don't control them. Like they are their own company. They, you know, it's up to them to ensure quality, to make sure that these things work, to handle returns, customer service, all this stuff. It feels a little wild, but the idea is this needs to be decentralized. Yes. If we have just one manufacturer, you know, like Scott Corporation, that is a centralized point that can control how this works. You know, it's a centralized point for regulation, should that ever come up. And I don't know, we've got plenty of those companies. There's plenty of centralized companies making miners. So let's try something different. Spread this out there. So far, so good.
Because then the regulators could come in and say, hey, you've reached a certain critical mass. You have to now manufacture it with this back door. And if you're the central point of manufacturing, what can you say?
Yeah, if you're a publicly traded like U.S. corporation, you can't really say anything. You have a fiduciary duty to your shareholders to remain in business. Mm-hmm. And if the government comes and says, you either add this or you're out of business and in jail, you don't have much choice.
Right. Wow. So what are the, so basically you just provide, you know, here's how you should build it. Like you said, if you make any changes, you just have to upload those changes. And then, so are you complete? Are you working on maybe V2.0s and just iterate till the end of time? Stuff like that.
Iterate till the end of time.
I see.
The project moves really fast. We're on the 4th or 5th major revision to the BitaXe. I'm working on right now is a new one called the BitaxeGamma. We have these code names for each one. It was the first one was just the BitaXe. Then there was the BitaxeGamma Max, the BitaxeGamma Ultra, the BitaxeGamma Supra, and now we're on the BitaxeGamma. And this is using a different chip each time.
So that's your 5th one? Did I count that right? 5th iteration?
I guess so. Yeah. Yeah.
No way.
This major version is coming out.
It's January.
So no. Gosh, when did the first one start? The first one was really rough. Like no one was basically running the first one. The BitaXe Max, the second one, was the first one that people started running, and that probably came out. I think that one was like early 23, so like a year and a half ago.
Wow. I have a question from TJ. He's a buddy of mine. I don't know if you know TJ up in he's in Vancouver.
Oh, great.
He's an accountant. He was one of the show hosts, but he says, how do you manage and oversee the BitaXe Legit program? What were to happen if one of them were to go rogue?
So for those that don't know, BitaXe Legit it's just a single web page that lists sellers and sellers that follow the open source license. Not all of them do. And a couple rules that I have that I think make it easier for buyers to get the right thing. So if you go to bitaxe.org, there's a link to this BitaXe Legit list. And I think we've got maybe like 15 or so sellers on there. And all I do is verify that those sellers are following the open source license, meaning that if they've made any changes, they have released those open source as well. And a couple rules, like I don't want people doing pre-sales of unreleased hardware. That gets a little scammy. Like also it puts some pressure on me. Like what if I don't release it in time and they've already sold it? It's already a little sketchy when it's the same company that makes it that's doing a pre-sale, but this is disjointed. So anyways, no pre-sales, and have actual photos of what you're selling, which you would think would be straightforward, but not everyone seems to want to do that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that doesn't seem like that hard. So you don't allow any pre-sales? That's one of the rules?
Yeah, no pre-sales, just because of that. Like the people doing the pre-sale aren't the ones manufacturing it. So they can't like promise any schedule because I control that development schedule. Then they are getting the money for the pre-sale. So I felt like that would make a weird dynamic.
Yeah. TJ said y'all met at the Canadian Bitcoin conference and he got a selfie to rub it in Kendall's face. Who's
yes.
Kendall's like your biggest cheerleader.
Kendall is amazing. I met her in Nashville, I think in January, and she's all in on the project. I really appreciate Kendall's support.
Yeah. She doesn't let a Monday show go by without mentioning BitaXe. So she is a perpetual billboard for what's your project.
Right on, Kendall. I appreciate your support. And I mean, it's champions of the BitaXe like this that are make the project successful, because that's a lot of work for any one person or a couple people to do. So so
maybe can you tell us, especially for people that are, because I'm bringing in a lot more audience that have nothing to do with Bitcoin. And so they don't understand the threat of centralized everything and mining being a part of it. How maybe can you explain to someone who's very new, not just to Bitcoin, but especially mining, why is this important? Or you figured you might be better at simplifying that message than me, because it's what you do.
Yeah, I initially started the BitaXe project because I'm an electrical engineer. I like Bitcoin and I want to just see if I can do this thing. But it has quickly is morphed into a project to address this issue of mining centralization. And why is mining centralization a problem, or even something to be worried about at all? I think one of the core beliefs, core tenets that Bitcoin is built on is that there is no central entity controlling it. There's no Bitcoin corporation. Satoshi isn't, deciding what Bitcoin is going to be or what it's not going to be anymore. Mm-hmm. And Bitcoin is a stand against fiat, which is government controlled currency, centralized currency. There's a central entity organization that says how much money is being printed, or who can do certain transactions, what transactions are allowed and what aren't. Bitcoin is a stand against that, saying that's bullshit. We can't have that. It's decentralized. No one controls it. It's a peer-to-peer collaborative network, and we all agree on rules together, but there's no, I think fiat even it stands for like let it be. It's like Latin for let it be, meaning someone has just
decreed it by decree or something like that.
Yeah, by decree. And so it was created by decree. It can be changed by decree. You are
the ultimate kind of because I said so.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And so decentralization, core tenet of Bitcoin. Bitcoin mining is a core, concept of Bitcoin. It's how transactions get processed. And so we can't have one of the core functionalities of Bitcoin be centralized either, Bitcoin mining. So, it has always been relatively centralized, Bitcoin mining has, but I think it's getting worse. We have these large entities like Bitmain, which is both a miner manufacturer and they run a mining pool, taking over more and more market share, centralizing mining. And it's not good. Like there's nothing good that can come out of that. We want to have it be as decentralized as possible so that it maintains censorship resistance, so that it remains permissionless. We want anyone to be able to use Bitcoin. We want anyone to be able to propose changes to Bitcoin. We want anyone to be able to build on Bitcoin without needing to obtain permission from a centralized entity. That's just antithetical to the whole idea of Bitcoin. So that's the BitaXe. It's a project by which you, me, anyone can get involved in Bitcoin mining and build on it, change it how they see fit, or even just run it, and contribute to that decentralization of mining, which is one of the things that makes Bitcoin so great.
Yeah, and so you said your chances are 1 in 9 million if you run it every day. Did I get you right?
Yeah. About. You can go to solochance.org and type in the hash rate of a single BitaXe, which is like 3/4 of a terahash, and you can see sort of what your chance is, per block, per day, per year, and your chances are not good. Like the BitaXe is a very low hash rate miner, and as a result, your chances are not good. Really not good.
If you have a low time preference, let's see, you're going to live 300, 3,000, 30,000, 30,000 days if you live 100 years. So let's just say half of that because you probably won't get started.
I'm going to plug it in right now. We'll get some live
percent
chances here. We're at
a rough calculation. If you buy 6 of these, you mathematically should win within your lifetime 1 block, and you run them for 50 straight years. If you run 6 of them for 50 straight years, your odds are you're going to hit it at least one day out of that.
I just typed it into Solochance. It's solochance.com. The time estimate for a single BitaXe to solve a block is 18,000 years. So,
oh wow,
by the numbers, your odds are not good. The person that solved this block with a BitaXe is extremely lucky, like absurdly lucky. They'd only been running it. CK Pool announced they'd only been running it for like 2 or 3 weeks. Like this person is absurdly lucky, but same as the lottery. I guess the chances per day now are 1 in 6.8 million. They beat all the odds.
Yeah.
But that sounds real bad. It's like, why should anyone get a BitaXe? Like, you're not going to win. There's the lottery aspect. Like, why should you buy a lottery ticket? You're not going to win statistically, but people do. And then there's also the Bitcoin aspect to it. Now, 1 BitaXe is insignificant, but we're not going to sell just 1, right? If we get 1 million BitaXe out there, that's 3/4 of an exahash. And that's, that is that is starting to become a more significant part of the Bitcoin network.
What's the total exahash of the Bitcoin network?
I think it's like over 600. It's over 600. So
roughly 600th. And that's actually, and you could conceive it being, it's why 15 watts? Is that, why not 30 watts? Because then, that's twice as powerful, or, that still seems super insignificant. I mean, a 100-watt light bulb is 1 amp of 120. That's still very tiny. And that would be, 4 or 5 times what you got now.
The reason why we're at that power level is because so far all the BitaXes use a single chip out of an Antminer. So we didn't talk about that, but for those that don't know, the BitaXe uses the ASICs, that's the chips, from Antminers. That's, developing your own ASIC is an incredibly difficult process that requires many millions of dollars and lots of time. Excuse me. So we skip that. We use the chips out of the Antminers, reverse engineered them so that we can put just like an Antminer will have like 300 chips in it. We use just one of them. And it just so happens that those chips are like 12 watts, 12 to 15 watts, depending on how you run it.
Right.
That's nice because it keeps the price real low. The chips are not cheap. We end up paying like $15 to $20 each.
So you buy them individually. You're not repurposing older chips. Or you buy them.
That's the crazy part, is there's no place to buy these chips really. And so all the BitaXes that are made these days, the chips are taken out of brand new Antminers. Yeah. It's a little bit wild. It's like, we can talk about that. That's sort of a goal for the project, is to get a little bit more legit on the chip sourcing process. But that's kind of how we ended up at the power budget for a single BitaXe. There's a project in the works called the BitaXe Hex, which actually has 6 chips in it. That's a little over 3 terahash, 60 watts kind of thing, 70 watts. It starts to get a lot more complicated really fast. And the more chips that we add to it, the closer it gets to being like a single Antminer hash board. And we're never going to compete with Bitmain on price.
Right.
They're the original equipment manufacturer. They don't authorize any of this stuff. They're not giving us any deals or any help at all. In fact, it's like an adversarial relationship.
Right.
So yeah, I don't want to compete with Antminers. That's ridiculous. So try and keep these low power. But to your point, like if we just doubled the hash rate, now we only need to sell 500,000 of them to get that, close to 1 exahash.
But these are the natural boundaries you're talking about, from competition, manufacturing, making your own chip. And that's kind of what keeps you where you're at. So the one chip is really is what sets the 15 watts.
Exactly. And I think that there might be a 2 or 3 chip BitaXe that's practical in the future. The project that I mentioned, the new one, the BitaxeGamma, uses the chip out of the S21 Pro, which is actually like almost double the hash rate of the previous one. So the BitaxeGamma will be over 1 terahash for a single chip. So, as Bitmain makes advances, we do too.
Yeah. Now, is there anything out in the market looking to make the residential space heater from a mining operation, or for some type of miner?
Absolutely. There's a bunch of really smart people working on this. Zach Baumstadt, I'm sure you've heard of him. He runs Pivotable Pleb. He makes the Loki board. He's working.
I'm still semi new to the Bitcoin space, as much as, even though I bought it earlier, I didn't jump into the side of the pool that you guys are on until recently. Now, who was that again?
Zach Baumstadt is a super smart dude. He comes from actually the IoT startup world, but he's a hardcore Bitcoiner and engineer. He's working on a project called Unbound Networks, which is it's in the residential heating using Bitcoin miners industry. He's got a great thing going on. Zach also, just sort of by way of his R&D for this product, made something called the Loki board, which is a little add-on to an Antminer that allows it to run off 110 volts, which is really nice in North America because we don't have 220 really very much in the residential scene. So it lets you use an older power supply with a newer miner. And a lot of people are building these, they call them Loki rigs, that are just, you can kind of, oops, it's on the other side. You can kind of see like a big, that's a big S19 behind me. It lets you run that thing more practically at your house because you can just plug it into a standard outlet. You have to underclock it so you don't draw too much current from your 15 amp circuit or whatever. But
right.
Loki board is extremely popular. A lot of people are hacking on that. There's another talented engineer who goes by Schnitzel. He's famous for the hash tub. He did a hot tub that was heated with a Bitcoin miner. It was really cool, like a full-on hot tub. 100-degree Fahrenheit water, totally heated by a miner. It's fantastic. There's a cool picture of, he brought it to Nashville during a snowstorm, and this hot tub is out there in the snow with a bunch of people in it, and it's heated by two S19s. It's so cool.
They were telling me about it, the people over at now is that where you're living now, or where are you?
No, a couple years ago I moved to North Carolina, so that's where I'm based now.
Okay,
not too far from Nashville.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
So Schnitzel and Zach, I'll have to reach out to those two guys and get them to find out more about what they do.
You should talk to them both. Really cool backstory, talented dudes. Good to talk to. They're working in this heat reuse scene, which it's like at a high level, it's obvious. Like, we have all this extra heat. Let's use it for some heating purposes. But when you get down to the technical aspect of it, it's not as easy because these mining machines weren't meant for this purpose. They were meant to run in a big warehouse that looks kind of like a data center. So yeah,
that's right. So if you have to look at the parameters of your environment, and if your parameters are unlimited electricity, as much noise as you want to make, all the airflow you can stand, people aren't living there. That is not the case of what we all just mentioned. People are living there. They don't want noise. They don't have unlimited power. They're not technical. Okay, so now that completely changes what you could build or install.
Yeah, it's a big project for sure. I've been tangentially involved in some of that because we've for the BitaXe project, we've reverse engineered the protocol by which you talk to the hash boards and the chips themselves. And so trying to help out, we've got a couple projects like replacement control boards for Antminers that are spin-offs of the BitaXe project, all open source, of course. And I keep getting tempted to like really dive into this, but I've also got this BitaXe project, which is a little different, but hopefully we can support some of these things.
Yeah, because at your wattage, you're not worried about heat at all. It's not even the sound, the heat, everything is not even an issue.
That's the cool thing at 15 watts is that's a trivial amount of heat, and the fan to keep it cool is, I've got two of them running right next to me on the desk here.
Wow. So they're silent, no heat.
Oh yeah.
Nearly zero power draw.
Yeah, you're not going to notice this on your electricity bill. That's one of the cool things is you can start screwing around with Bitcoin mining and not like wreck yourself when your utility bill comes.
Mm-hmm. But yet everything that one would need to learn about mining can be learned at any scale. Am I correct in saying that?
Absolutely. The BitaXe just uses Stratum, which is the same thing as all the big boys use, and it's the exact same concepts, just on a much smaller scale and much cheaper to just screw around with it.
Yeah. So if someone would like, let's say you've got some engineers coming into the space, because, like myself, I have an engineering background, master electrician. I'm coming into the space trying to think, and I got a whole army of people that just from my career, my background, that as they come in, I know this is what they're going to gravitate to. They're the Lego maniacs, the engineers, the tinkerers, the gearheads, and they're going to end up on this side of the equation 100%. They're not going to become financial guys and software engineers.
Right on. Yes, we need more of these folks.
So how do we get them more involved? Is it the Atlanta thing that I'm getting ready to attend, or is it, find guys like you and Zach and Schnitzel, or where is this community right now?
When I went to TabConf, this Atlanta thing, last year, being, I guess, a mining guy more so than anything, I was like, I think I was probably the only mining guy there. There's a lot of Lightning developers, core developers, wallet developers, like the whole Seed Signer crew is there, which is all fantastic. Every single one of them is absolutely dedicated to open source. In fact, they don't even really talk about open source at all because it's just like a given.
Yeah, it's understood.
Yeah, which is a huge difference from going to Mining Disrupt, which just happened in Miami, where every single person is a Bitcoin miner involved in that industry one way or another. And open source is not a concept at all. No one talks about it at all. Just totally different worlds. And so I feel like it's a little bit weird here in the middle. Is like, I'm about open source and Bitcoiner to the core and mining. And those two worlds have diverged a while ago. I would like to see at least some facet of them reunite. There's an organization called the 256 Foundation, which is founded by the guys who run Pod 256. And it's a foundation dedicated to help funding open source mining development, which is like, wow, that's my jam. I think it's a fantastic idea. And this is really new. This is as of last week, but I believe we're going to be putting together a meetup / online group that is dedicated to sort of uniting these worlds, which I think will be really cool. This might be where your crew wants to jump in.
I think so.
There's also, and this is longstanding at this point, but we have this group called the Open Source Miners United. It's a Discord group that started right around the time the BitaXe did. Started around the BitaXe project, but now it has grown to encompass all open source mining projects. It's just online, but there's like 2,000 members, and it's a very very active Discord group. You can hop in there, talk technical stuff.
What's the name of the channel?
It's called OSMU, which stands for Open Source Miners United. And if you go to bitaxe.org, I have an invite link to the Discord. So you can get on there. You can get your electrical engineer, sort of hands-on builder homies in there. It's a good place to start. So I would say there, OSMU, as well as 256 Foundation related meetups. And then there's a Telegram group for people doing those Loki rigs that I mentioned before. A lot of cool heat reuse projects. There's a lot of smart people in that space too. And
the Loki, how do you spell that?
Loki.
Ki.
Yeah.
And the Loki is basically trying to stay under the 15 amp load of a regular residential receptacle. Is that the general concept, or more of a residential home user, tinkerer kind of thing?
The Loki board is just a tiny little circuit board that you attach to your amp miner, and it tricks it so that it will still operate on a smaller 110 power supply, or even a DC power supply. Basically, the stock amp miners are they communicate with the power supply, and they refuse to operate if you don't have the power supply that it is designed to use. And those power supplies are 220 only.
Yeah. 30 amp 220s, I think, is the standard one.
Yes, those APW 7s, 9s. And so the Loki board gets in there and it says, basically, forget about it. Just run and be happy. And it works quite well.
Yeah.
And so you can use an APW3, which is the power supply that came with the S9, the venerable S9. And those power supplies work very well on 110 volts.
Yeah. Okay. So now aside from your online stuff, is there like an area, a city, a meetup, I don't know, some university somewhere where actually physically people are gathering together and say, look, this is the hardware nerd capital of the world or Earth or America? Or are we all just scattered to the digital universe?
We are definitely scattered all over the world for sure. There's great things everywhere. I would say Bitcoin Park in Nashville has emerged as a meeting spot. It's not just hardware, but a lot of Bitcoin mining hardware folks have been meeting up there. They host a number of mining specific events. Also, the founders of the 256 Foundation are there. They have an event in January, the North American Mining Summit.
Who are the founders of the 256 Foundation?
It's Rod and Econo Alchemist are the two guys.
I know Rod. We
okay.
kind of started that the whole Bitcoin Park, but I haven't heard of the other one. Who was it? Economist?
Econo Alchemist. He goes by Eco. He's the co-host of Pod 256 with Rod, and he's doing a bunch of cool heat reuse, stranded energy type projects in Bitcoin mining as well. Yeah. Those two guys are certainly organizer, mover and shaker types in Bitcoin and specifically Bitcoin mining.
And probably get Harry on that board as well. Of course, he's got his own thing. Yes.
Harry is a legend. He has been very helpful. This is, of course, Harry Sudak of Grid Mining. They've been excellent partners in all this.
Mm-hmm. So do you attend the regular, what do they have, a monthly BitDev meeting in Nashville? Is that something you regularly attend or would recommend people attend if they're trying to, get connected to this network outside of the annual TAB conference?
Yes, definitely. BitDevs is a syndicated thing, so there may be one in your city already. I know there's one here in Raleigh that I go to all the time. It's fantastic. I love the Nashville one. There's a lot of mining topics that happen there. A lot of seriously smart dudes. BitDevs is a great organization. Highly recommend it. I try and get out to Nashville and Bitcoin Park as much as possible.
Yeah. Where are the other good BitDevs? I think there's probably a good one in Austin. I've heard there, New York. There's got to be something in California, probably in the Bay Area. Is that the main cruise? Those 4 cities, or are there others that we should know about?
Let's see. Did you say New York? Yeah, New York is the original one. I think that one's pretty big. There's one in Atlanta that they have a Bitcoin sort of meetup hackerspace there that's pretty active. They have a BitDevs. I've only been to the Raleigh one, which is my regular one, and the Nashville one, but both fantastic. I'm sure they have a website that aggregates them all.
Yeah, I need to look that up and give that to the audience, because I know there's one in Austin.
Okay.
And there's one in the Bay Area, but I don't. This is something I just need to do a little homework so I can share that, because I think this is where we need to start sending and making available. I've done some work trying to build the Bitcoin meetup space, but this is way different. If you haven't been to one, maybe describe the difference between a Bitcoin meetup and a BitDev.
Bitcoin meetups are fantastic. Highly recommended. Obviously, you've done a ton of work to promote this, but they are, a good place to go to learn about Bitcoin for the first time ever. Or if you're a hardcore Bitcoin veteran, to go there and talk with, compatriots. But it's, they're almost social in nature a lot of times. Like, you can just go and hang out with like-minded individuals, and it's not, you don't have to worry if you don't really understand how Bitcoin works. Maybe it's a good place to go learn more about it, kind of thing. BitDevs, on the other hand, it stands for Bitcoin developers. It's a very technically oriented meetup. They'll traditionally have this thing called the Socratic Seminar, where they post a list of topics. Anyone can present or suggest a topic, technical in nature, and they'll go over it and present it. A lot of like new developments in Bitcoin are presented there. It's very technical in nature. Obviously, you're not going to be like quizzed on it. You could go if you don't know anything about the topics and learn about it.
Yes, flies on the wall are welcome. I was there.
Yeah,
I was there. TJ, I know he goes to the one in Vancouver, and we are not technical people at all. I might have an engineering background, but I don't understand the software side. And there are plenty enough people that are not bit devs and are more than happy and welcome.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, it's a technically focused meetup, but very, very welcoming, and you could totally go and become more technical.
Now, in your opinion, it seems like most of the BitDev brain power or brain trust is focused on the software side, that at least at these BitDev meetings. Where is all this hardware brain power? Is it just stuck in the mining, like the big centralized mining companies and manufacturers? Like, where are the other people like you out there? It sounds like this is a community that is very much in its infancy.
I think the community is in its infancy. A lot of miners currently are these companies, and they're very proprietary, and they don't share what they're working on. So clearly there's a lot of smart Bitcoin mining developers. They all just work for companies that don't share information. So they may spend all day, every day, professionally developing Bitcoin miners. Obviously, there's a lot of Bitcoin miners out there. Someone's got to be making them. Mm-hmm. The current, maybe for the last decade, has not been to share that information. It's all company secrets. So I know they're very tight-lipped about what they're working on. Trying to change that. We're trying to change that. I hope that the BitAxe has helped this movement grow. Open Source Miners United, which is just online, but has been a gathering spot for these types of people. There's people who have joined and got jobs in the industry working on top secret stuff. There's people who have developed their own open source miners. There's people who just come in there and like shoot the shit about their favorite technical topics related to mining usually. So if you're at all interested in this from a technical aspect, I would say OSMU is a great place to go check it out. There's a growing scene on Twitter of people doing technical Bitcoin mining topics and sharing it. I think that's my other go-to spot for my daily fix.
Twitter.
Yeah. It's
I had a great talk the other day with Matt Hill over at Start9.
Oh yes, Matt's amazing.
And so I'm starting to try to see how many players are there. Like, let's just say you and Matt Hill are one of X. What is X? Sulfur X.
I don't know how many players there are. I mean, there's a lot of companies. Start9, of course, is doing a lot of software work, but they also make their own hardware to run nodes, and that's
same thing. And they open source it.
Yeah,
you can run it on your own thing, or you can just buy theirs. Are there like 1,000? I don't. It doesn't seem like there's 1,000. Scott and Matt Hills out there. It seems like there might be maybe struggling to reach 100 or 50.
Yeah, probably. If you listen to, or if you pay attention to Twitter, which is a lot of noisy people, I guess it seems like a small world. But I think there's a lot of people that are just kind of quietly working on this on their own. It's tough to rise above the noise on Twitter, especially if you're a more introverted engineer type.
And these are typically people that like to be under the radar anyway for the, obviously there's some kind of, the centralized people aren't going to like the decentralized people.
Yeah. Like any community, I guess there's all types. But
yeah,
on OSMU, I'm continually amazed. Someone will message me and they're like, oh yeah, I'm an electrical engineer. I've been working on mining. I'm like, they just totally know what's up.
Right.
And you're just like, where did you come from? But they're out there.
Yeah.
They're out there. Some really smart, really talented people who've been working in this space for a while have just shown up, and they're like, hey, I'm here. Let's, share information. Let's get started. Like a couple people that work in these companies are like, hey, like I love this stuff. I need to have a day job that pays me. So that's why I do this work over here. But I'm really at heart like a Bitcoiner, and I want to share information.
Yeah, it really feels like y'all are pioneering as far as the first people to step out publicly and say, this is what I'm working on. This is an engineering problem. It's hardware related. It sounds like guys like you and Matt are kind of some of the first few to really step out and kind of put your flag in the sand publicly. Is what I'm working.
We have Block, right? Block is, it was Square. Now it's Block. It's run by Jack Dorsey. Jack Dorsey is incredibly dedicated to open source, incredibly dedicated to Bitcoin, open source, sort of altruistically in it to advance Bitcoin.
He is making good on his Miami promise when they boot.
We're very lucky to have him. Block is doing all kinds of work on, they came out with the BitKey, the hardware wallet. They're working on their own ASIC, which is that's a massive undertaking. It's hard to even it's like $10 million just to start thinking about making your own chip.
Wow.
And you don't even have a chip at that point. That's just to get started.
And you certainly don't have a foundry.
Oh yeah. No. They're going down that route. They are making their own chip. They're making their own miner, and they are dedicated to open source and working with this community, which is fantastic. I am so excited to have them. I'm looking forward to working with them. They've been very gracious.
So you're able to work with them directly to some degree with what you're working on?
Yeah. We've been in contact a bunch for a while now about their plans, their progress. They've provided access to their, to talk with their engineering team. It's been fantastic. Like, I wish they could be more open about what they're doing, but I realize there's a lot of money on the line and a relationship with a foundry, which definitely is not an open source endeavor.
Right.
And so I'm confident that they're headed down the right path. I have been incredibly honored to work with them on small things here and there. And I hope that increases in the future, because like I was saying before, the BitX is currently tied to Bitmain's chips, which it's not a good situation. Because we just kind of get essentially the dregs of what they produce,
Right. It's not purpose built. I remember, studying a lot. I was a student of Tesla and Elon, and when they came in, they obviously got the C and the D team from manufacturers, Ford, and all the GMs. They got the A team when you got assigned your sales team, and so none of their stuff was purpose built. They had to redesign everything. And so those early Teslas, even the ones today, they have to manufacture the machine that makes the machine and build everything in house because nothing's made for them. And so when you're competing with purpose built and you're just kind of tearing apart their stuff and trying to make it work in your stuff, it's always going to be a challenge versus engineering your stuff for the ground up for the purpose you're using it for, which is hopefully where y'all can get.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's
fantastic.
It's a big process. I hope that we can work with Block and get access to their ASICs. They obviously need to go after the big miner customers as well, because the company has invested a lot of money so far and has a lot more to go in these chips. But hopefully, because they have a much more Bitcoiner minded core, foundation for their work, I think I think that home mining and open source mining can be a big part of that.
Yeah. So where would you say the big heat, the heat reuse team is that? Is that mostly just found on Discord channel, on the Telegram group, that kind of stuff, the 256 Foundation, stuff like that? Or where can people kind of get more involved, find out more information about how they could, if you're an engineer listening?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that the heat reuse, stranded energy stuff there's a couple of proprietary things going on there. I think that sort of open source community is still kind of getting put together. I'm trying to think if there's just one-stop shop you can go to like get involved, and I'm not sure what it is. I know people talk about this a lot on the Loki Rigs Telegram group. I see a lot of it come across on Twitter. They call them heat punks. There's people reusing heat from Bitcoin miners. A lot of cool builds. There's a lot of individuals that have projects in that domain that are kind of getting going, but I don't know if there's one spot yet, which is too bad. Hopefully something related to the 256 Foundation and the meetups that are going to be associated with that can kind of unify that community. OSMU, we do it's not focused on that particularly, but there are a bunch of people working on that in there because I think there's some carryover into that field. We do a lot of solar powered Bitcoin mining projects. There's people doing immersion. There's a lot of people working on there's some people working on mining testers. So this is for the ASIC repair market, of which a lot of that kind of falls into the heat reuse project, because a lot of those people are using older, used repurposed miners for this.
Like S9s.
What's that?
Like S9s, they'll get
S9s, vanilla S19s, right? Those things are so cheap because they're not economical to use for industrial mining anymore because the efficiency isn't there. Like you can't even, especially now, you can't plug them in. They would just lose money because their efficiency is so bad. But if you're reusing the heat, now you kind of get this double spend, and it starts to make a lot more sense. And the purchase price for that equipment is much less because they've been cast off from the industrial mining market.
Yeah, and that's kind of one I would be looking to kind of. I would love to heat that. I want to get in touch with Schnitzel, I guess, for the heating pool.
Yeah, Tyler Stevens. Do you know him? Tyler. Tyler Stevens. He's probably most. He's Tyler K. Stevens on Twitter. He is a mechanical engineer.
Stevens.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tyler K. Stevens. He's big into heat reuse. He's been putting together. He's been doing some community organization around this topic. I don't know if it's quite right. In fact, he just invited me to a group. I think that is a prototype for a community based on this topic. So it's really exciting to see what he's doing. He's obviously also a great engineer and has some cool projects in the works.
Is that, and he's on Twitter a lot?
Yeah. He's on Twitter a lot. That seems to be the main method. He's out there in Colorado. Actually, there's another BitDevs, the Denver BitDevs.
Oh, you're right. Yes.
They do a lot of mining stuff. They do a lot of mining stuff.
Yeah,
so I've heard.
Add them to the list, the Denver BitDev. Yeah, because I interviewed Tatum, and then, oh gosh, what's that other guy into? Oh, he was actually Adam O.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Upstream Data. Yeah, that's good stuff. They do a lot of cool mining projects, that's for sure.
Yeah. It really is. It's almost like it's a fragmented community, but it is dying to come together.
I mean,
that happens. Like, I think by the next cycle for sure, maybe even in this cycle, this community is going to really start it seems like there's so much pulling them together. It's going to click.
It's such a good idea. It is such a good idea. And right now the hash price is just tragic. So the industrial miners that are just running these machines straight up, like, they're suffering.
Yeah.
So
that's good. That's good
for, I mean, it's good for heat reuse. Yeah. It's good for,
that it's, we need that cover fire for us to for our use case to exist. And otherwise our use case is just like, well, we're making so much money this way, we don't even need you guys. So.
Yeah. I think there's some people that have predicted this. There's a cool line from Troy Cross. He said a while back, like, miners need to get creative because, it's a race to the bottom on energy prices. And there's only so low you can go just plugging into the grid. And so they need to get creative in where they source this energy from. Maybe it even needs to be, no cost, like extremely low cost, which is the case with stranded energy.
Right.
And mining is perfectly suited for that. We know that mining is perfectly suited for utilizing stranded energy. It's just, we don't have the hardware yet.
Right.
So that's what this crew is all working on, which is pretty exciting.
Scott, I don't know if you heard this. This is actually what got me into the energy component. Is I used to send master electricians into these massively complex facilities that would have these ramp ups and ramp downs. So they were heating up and then cooling off. And this would cause breakages through, imagine these big chemical plants, right, in South Louisiana. And so you might not know this if you're not an engineer, that if you can actually keep something running at full steam and never turn it off 24/7, you just nearly made its maintenance life infinite. It is actually the heating up and cooling down that breaks stuff. And so even like a combustion engine, if you can there are combustion engines that have insane lifespans because they never turn off. They're always heated and they never cool and contract. And that's what breaks all these metal components.
That makes a lot of sense.
Me, because I sent the army of service technicians at 100 plus an hour to go fix all this stuff. And so I had always thought that just having Bitcoin mines out there to make sure that this thing was demanded to stay at full capacity would delete so much maintenance problems from all of these type of facilities. And to me, that was a way to not just get Bitcoin and but to get reduce maintenance costs and extend lifespans of these very expensive machines. And to create constant uptime just from a power plant, because most of these power plants, they're there to handle the peak load, but you've got these massive troughs that they would love a client during those 20-hour a day troughs. So there's a lot that Bitcoin miners, I think, can come and do. They can chase heat, they can chase valleys in demand, they can chase stranded energy. And I think that's all going to be natural fits. And that's just the industrial side. I think what you're working on is more the decentralizing. It's more the ethos, like people that just want to keep Bitcoin strong and decentralized and at home. That's a whole nother side, not to mention heating hot tubs, heating your home. These are massively buckets of energy and money and that we're not even touching.
And the reason why I got into this is because, like I told you before, like I was working as essentially a contract engineer, designing whatever needed to be designed. And for a lot of those projects, when we needed to build something for a company that was going after a certain issue, right, we could look back and see, previous work on this topic. There was a lot of open source material that we could build on. So we didn't have to start from zero every time. At the very least, there was industries that were sort of targeting these applications. But when I got into Bitcoin mining, it was like, there's nothing. I had to absolutely start from zero. I had to reverse engineer products to even get started. And so that's one of the things that I have started to promote is like, this stuff is all open source. If you want to make a miner to target a specific industry, like you want to make a miner that attaches to this chemical plant somewhere and spins up whenever the chemical processing equipment spins down, you can start with this open source. You can start with a BitaXe. You can understand how we interface with these chips. You can understand how miners are made, and you can either hack an existing miner or make your own miner to target these applications. Yeah. And I think that obviously it's very early, but like that is what accelerates development, right? This is the exponential increase in development. We saw it with the internet. Is once there was open source web servers and open source OSs, now that platform dominates the web industry, right? If we can have this for other industries and where, let's say you are an engineer working in your garage and you're privy to this very specific problem that is well matched to Bitcoin mining, you can just start fucking around with this and, build your product without having to ask anyone for permission and, be the next big thing.
Yeah.
And then someone can build off that. And that's how we get this exponential increase in development.
All right. So I think you're helping me design at least a weekly show where I can get all these engineers.
Yes.
Let's just get the juice flowing.
Yeah, man. It's so exciting.
Yeah. I can reach out to Zach and Tyler and Schnitzel and maybe just do an interview like I'm doing with you. And then maybe where it makes sense, have different panels that speak on heat reuse or a project like you're working on. Yeah.
I think you'd be a perfect, instigator of this project, right? With your engineering background and now, being a community leader and knowing everyone, talking to everyone. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. All right. So I'll reach out to somebody. You've given me a ton of homework. You've actually you win the prize for most homework given to me in one interview.
Sorry, not sorry.
Well, this is going to be exciting because this is something I feel kind of like you, that if I could do this and help organize this, I would be like, I can't believe I get to do this. Because I at least so far in Bitcoin, I've not been able to use my engineering and electrical background aside from just talking about it. And I miss those days. I don't know if you were, but I literally would spend from the time I got home from school till my mom woke me up for breakfast the next morning to go to school playing with Legos for like probably 5 or 6 years of my childhood.
Oh man, I had a massive Lego collection.
Me too.
Loved it. I loved it, man.
And I don't even know where it is. I would do anything to have it back. It's probably worth 20 grand today at today's Lego prices.
I know my mom still has it. When my daughter, shows up at grandma's, just get that stuff out. And like, I mean, kids, it's still a very, very relevant toy, which is good to see.
I think so. All right. Well, I'm going to reach out to you maybe. Actually, I'm going to stay in touch. I'm going to reach out to these guys, start a whole interview, I guess, tracked just in this physical world of Bitcoin, on the engineering side, and really try to get this community going. Because, this is definitely near and dear to my heart as far as the Bitcoin topic.
So cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can get you, feed you a bunch of names of people that would be good to talk to. And then of course they can probably feed you more names as well.
Oh yeah. And then we'll just keep pulling the thread.
You should definitely talk to Tyler. I feel like he'd be a good.
So you've given me Tyler, Zach, Schnitzel, Econo Alchemist.
Mm-hmm.
And Rod's more of a community builder. He's not an engineer, is he? I don't think.
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, Rod obviously knows all of these people personally, so he might be a good person to talk to in that regard. But
talk to him too. On this.
There's the Pod 256 podcast, which is a more or less weekly show. So they're pretty connected in this scene as well. You could look to that. Look at some of their hosts. I'm blanking on the spot, but I'm sure if I look at my my feed, I can feed you a bunch of names.
Yeah, well, I'll be in touch with you on this, and then we'll do this again for BitaXe, especially if you have any product launches or something you want to talk about. And then,
right on. We're gonna have a new product coming out very soon here. I'm gonna Gotta get to
Oh,
work.
I can't wait. Maybe we can rope Kendall into being on this because she is your biggest cheerleader for sure.
Kendall's amazing. Yes, let's do that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. And then
Thanks for having me.
This is a great start. Great start to the week. So
Right on. Well, it seems like it's going to be a good week.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, and let us know if there's anything else we can do to help promote what you're doing, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks a lot, Scott.
Talk to you later.
Bye. All right. That was Scott with BitaXe. I met him. He was at Nashville. He's been on our show several times. Of course, Kendall has been promoting BitaXe. This is for anybody that would like to mine Bitcoin and learn about how to mine Bitcoin. I would say that's a big component of it. So if you want to get into Bitcoin mining, but you don't want to start with one of these big rigs that might need a 30 amp 220 circuit and an electrician and run cabling and stuff. You just want to run it off of, like he said, this thing draws 15 watts. Essentially, it draws what a phone charger would draw. But you're going to learn everything you need to learn about mining. How to clock it, how to, basically you'll be mining Bitcoin, how to point your hash rate. And so if you're just looking to educate yourself on how mining works leading up to mining itself, this is a great start. And like he said, it's all open source. You can build this yourself. You can buy it from people that have taken his open source, and we'll build it for you and just order the thing, whether it's just plug and play. So great concept there, and continuing to iterate on it. So I really want to follow his trajectory and anything he's working on. Thank you, Scott. And then I'm going to reach out to some of these other guys, and we're going to get them on the show. And then we're going to create like a panel on each of these topics, because I think we need to probably get the minds working on heat reuse team, just talk about the communities, where we can find each other, whether it's on Discord or a Telegram channel, or whether we're meeting up physically, maybe at the TAB conference. Let's try to get these engineers, the physical engineers, together, because it seems like if this was a competition between the software and the hardware people, I think the hardware people are all stuck in these centralized companies, and they don't see a light of day. But the software people seem to be much more in the open source. So maybe that's something we can contribute to and change. I think it's kind of ripe. So anyway, this is Craig LeBlanc, your host. Craig LeBlanc, the doorman. And people have been asking me, what does a doorman mean? Okay, so a friend of mine said that, and this is quite a while ago, I've always opened the door for people, introduced people, connected people. And so I've gotten termed the doorman because sometimes I don't even know much about the party that's going on inside. I just invite people, help build communities. So anyway, that's where that came from. And hopefully I can continue to open doors for people and connect people in this space, because it's such a great space. So anyway, Craig LeBlanc, your host. We'll do this again as often as possible. I try to do one of these each day. I think I'm going to stick to this 9:30 a.m. time slot as just something regular that I can do, and really just try to do something daily, 9:30 a.m. to highlight a lot of what these people are going. And then if I've got a special guest across the other side of the planet that it maybe doesn't work for them, we'll figure that out as well. But anyway, y'all have a great Monday. Please go buy some Bitcoin today. It is on fire sale. And let's see, I don't even know what the price is. I don't really check that stuff anymore, but let's just pull it up. It's back up to 54,000. I thought it was a lot lower earlier. So yeah, I think we had almost touched 49 or something like that. Anyway, well, sale didn't last long. Hopefully you got some cheap stuff. So let's all go contribute to decentralizing Bitcoin. And maybe if you're an engineer out there, let's see if I can get you in touch with one of these projects, and we can start shifting some of your brain power towards this endeavor. But y'all have a great week, and I will see y'all again tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.
Inflation is stealing your purchasing power, but what if there was a way to fight back? Enter Bitcoin, the digital currency that empowers you to take control of your wealth. Ever wondered why your money doesn't stretch as far as it used to? At the Daily Bitcoin Podcast, we educate, inform, and inspire. From expert interviews to breaking news, we bring you everything you need to stay ahead in the Bitcoin community. Market updates, expert insights, real-world use cases, and practical tips to navigate the Bitcoin economy. So whether you're a seasoned Bitcoin investor or just getting started, this is your daily dose of Bitcoin wisdom. Don't miss out. Subscribe now, hit that bell icon, and let's break free from the chains of inflation, one Bitcoin at a time. The Daily Bitcoin Podcast, your gateway to financial freedom.